Before we begin today's video, just a quick reminder. I do not own any animes such as Naruto, Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, Hunter x Hunter, Mob Psycho 100, I believe the name is, or it's Psycho Mob 100. I don't know. I do not own Jujutsu Kaisen or JJBA, also known as. Hold on. Sorry about that. Back to where we were. I do not own anything such as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, My Hero Academia, Naruto, Demon Slayer, and so on. I do not own any art and or music. The characters, the gender-bent characters in this video are owned by Araki, the creator of JJBA. The only thing I own in this story is my voice and the story itself. Without any further ado, let's begin. Roll the intro. Welcome everyone. Finally it begins. I posted a, teaser for this video on my community page, and many of you thought it was not coming. It was always coming. The problem was I just couldn't decide which element / ability I should give Tanjiro. Yes, for those who don't know what this video is, it is what if Tanjiro was a Pillarman. Part 1. Now, as we know, the three Pillarmen canonically have abilities such as the boiling blood, or which is AC/DC's, and I quote, "My domain is that of the Inferno." Cars, I believe his domain is light. And Wamu, obviously, his domain is wind. And yet, I do not know if Santana has a ability like the others, but doesn't show it, or he can't, or he simply can't. Nevertheless, in this video, Santana will have an ability. Yes, I know. I don't care if it breaks canon rules. So yes, technically, there is 4 characters in this series that are owned by Araki. Sorry about that. Misconfusion. I'm sorry about that confusion and miscommunication. Now let's begin. I'll talk about his ability later in the story. Okay. But without any further ado, let us begin. The year was 2051 BC. The Pillarmen were the year, well, not 2051, much before that, far before that. Back when the Egyptians and cavemen existed and first came around, there was the Pillarmen, a powerful race of creatures. However, they were also very peaceful. They could not touch sunlight, however. They'd die if they ever went in daylight. And so the Pillarmen lived in temples underground. They saw little need for reproduction because they had an elongated lifespan. However, little did they know that this would probably be one of their greatest downfalls. Or at least something very dumb. One day, however, a genius was born. A once in 1,000 generations genius. And then she had a brother who was also a genius. Her name was Car. The genius's name was Cars. Spelled with a K, not a C. She was very smart, intelligent, and powerful. She was skilled in martial arts. Well, combat and fighting styles, as back then traditional martial arts didn't exist yet. She was considered a scientist, either a scientist or great researcher or genius of the Pillarman of the Pillarman race. Her brother was also very smart. He was also skilled. Some even said that he was on par with the likes of his sister. His name was Tanjiro. Now, Tanjiro and Cars were very powerful warriors. But one day, Cars came to realization that their race was capable of so much more. Tanjiro was the first to know about her ideas. He even helped her create the first stone mask. When such a creation was created, Tanjiro wanted to wear it first, but Cars insisted that even though Tanjiro was her younger, and that even though Tanjiro was wanting to do it so his sister wouldn't be hurt if it went wrong, she knew that she had to protect her younger brother, even if they were younger by maybe, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. The two who were the first two to wear the stone masks. And oh gee whiz, were they a rush. With the power of the stone mask also came with great benefits also came great requirements. They were now required to feed on a multitude of more beings than they already had, just to survive. Tanjiro's sister also had a friend, or comrade. Her name was AC/DC. AC/DC was the third to wear one of these masks. And oh gee whiz, What? Once more, was it a rush? Yes. The three gained powers greater than any pillarman, and greater than any other pillarman. AC/DC's ability allowed her veins to be pipe and to become pipe and become pipe-like, to the point where she could make them extremely large, to the point where they could come out of her body at will. This was not the only thing, though, as with enlargement and ability to take her veins out of her body, the veins could also leak from them large portion and large amounts of blood, which she could heat up the temperature to the point where it could scald off a human's flesh and bone. Ouch, that's hot. AC/DC was known as the Burning Queen after that night. However, after she took on the mask. However, Kars and Tanjiro also gained great abilities. Kars gained an ability to create blades out of her legs and out of her, bottom of her legs and her very wrists. This ability allowed her to create what she called brilliant bone blades, which allowed her bones to extend out of her body like blades. They were also surrounded with, and each blade also had what appeared to be millions of extremely tiny, rotating, serrated shark teeth-like blades on each of the brilliant bone blades. This gave the impression of the blade refracting light off of it, making appear as if it was glowing. It was truly a brilliant weapon and technique. However, Tanjiro was third, and Tanjiro, however, was his ability a doozy. He had the ability, and once he took upon this mask, he gained what appeared to be a black marking on almost half of his body. If we're doing it percentagely, it covered almost half of his body. This marking was able to morph itself in shape and size. It could also come off of Tanjiro's body, creating a shadow-like effect, to the point where it would appear as if shadows were coming off of Tanjiro's body, and they would even create shapes of a certain object. Once the shape was complete, then the shadows would then morph into that object, like, say, tendrils or a scythe. No, cannons, guns, shield, arms, claws, attacks. It was truly an amazing ability. It gave Tanjiro the domain of shadow. However, due to their great skills and power, when they announced their ideals to the rest of their race, they were immediately sought as fugitives or public enemy number 1. They were seen as too dangerous to be kept alive, too smart, too curious, too powerful. The rest of the Pillarmen feared them, even though they held no ill intentions to them. Kars and Tanjiro begged and tried to plead with their race, saying, "Fools, don't you wish to dare walk in the sunlight right amongst and stand above all humanity and see yourself like gods and then have them see you as a god?" No one spoke. They only then, after a small amount of silence, they attacked. It was a large, bloody battle. A destructive one, too. After that night, the entire Pillarman race, aside from 5, being Tanjiro, Cars, AC/DC, and 2 innocent young baby girls, the entire Pillarman race was gone. However, over time, they began searching for an even powerfuler artifact, a gem called the Super Aja, or the super red stone of Aja, a stone which had the ability to refract light instead of a small portion, like a normal red Aja stone did. This stone had the ability to reflect it about 1 billion times, and to refract light about 1 billion times. Cars and Tanjiro theorized that if they were able to have this stone and place it in one of their masks, they would gain power even more great, and would eventually be able to fully unlock their brain potential and walk amongst in the sunlight. They would then be truly gods. Now, almost 10,000 years later, now almost 10,000 to 20,000 years later, they finally have it. The red mass. They finally have it. Godlike power in their possession. Cars and Tanjiro, despite being the only remainders of the 5 Pillarmen, were now on power levels unimaginable. Cars quickly began to use her abilities over life, shape-shifting, animals, and even the sun. However, Tanjiro was given abilities of darkness, death, and the moon. As he was, in other words, basically an equal or opposite of Cars. He was also the only male Pillarman, and at the time, she was the only female Pillarman. It was a long battle, but somehow the 2 siblings were defeated by the genius mind of the silly yet extremely intelligent Joseph Joestar. However, they only lost due to their ego, which, once they gained that power, their resolve and their striving for intelligence and power, it was gone. Now they were perfect ultimate life forms, or, as Cars was called the ultimate life, Tanjiro was called the ultimate death. They were tricked on a volcano to the point where Cars would use her ability of enhanced Hamon to strike down upon the earth. causing the volcano to erupt. The two were on a plateau, which was sent flying into the sky. They tried using their abilities to bring them back to their world, and to bring them back to the Earth, even after out of the atmosphere. But it was not possible. The two were lost to space, eventually becoming brain dead. Their brain no longer worked. Their organs no longer worked. And as a last-minute chance for survival, the Pillarmen turned themselves into their stone forms, floating throughout space for what would be thought of as all of eternity. However, in all truth, about a week later, the two would be hit by a random meteorite, causing them to immediately begin flying to an entirely random direction. The two landed in a volcano and into what appeared to be a black hole, or a wormhole of sorts. This wormhole sent them flying down into another wormhole, which was in another universe, or a parallel universe. They were sent hurtling right to the Earth, and crashed upon it as if they were meteors. This was around the time of the dinosaurs. Back then. We skip millions of years. Over 65 million to be exact. I'm over 64 million years to be exact. The two had landed in two completely different places. Tanjiro had landed in Japan, or what would soon be known as Japan, while Cars would land in Egypt, or what would be eventually known as Egypt. Over time, the world changed. This time, there was no Pillarmen in this world. In other words, this was a world that would happen if the Pillarmen didn't exist. And in this world, while there was no Pillarmen and no vampires, there were demons. Tanjiro was the first to awaken. He awoke first during the Sengoku era. When Tanjiro first opened his eyes, he saw himself surrounded in nothing but vegetation and rock. He then tried, in order to escape, turned himself into a black and purple jelly-like substance. Once he was free, Tanjiro morphed back into his true form. He wore black clothing associatable to some sort of royal robes. He then walked upon the earth in confusion and said, "I'm alive? Where am I? Wait, who am I?" Tanjiro realized that his body turned itself, in an effort to escape, his body subconsciously turned itself into a jelly-like state to escape the rocks and to escape the mounds of vegetation and earth he was trapped under. But then he realized he had no memory of who he was or what he was. He was confused. lost. He wandered around in confusion, and eventually he was found by another wanderer. The man introduced himself as Michiketsu Tsujikune. He was a both kind and yet very strict man. Michiketsu was smart, cunning, kind, but cold and calculating. He introduced himself to Tanjiro as the best swordsman of all time, and the best samurai of all time. Tanjiro was confused, and he asked, "What the heck is a samurai?" Michiketsu then explained what a samurai was to Tanjiro, and eventually brought him to his home. During this time, Michiketsu was only a teenager. Michiketsu brought the seemingly teenaged boy to his home, where he then repaired his clothes. Repaired his clothes due to the service of many maids and or butlers. Tanjiro then said, "You have many people working for you. You some sort of king?" As he then said, "Oh, no, I'm just next in the throne. I'm next in line to be a sort of emperor or shogun." If you don't know what those are, basically, I'm next in line to be a leader and to be the leader. As then, Tanjiro heard someone then say, and Tanjiro then heard someone walk in and begin washing themselves off. Tanjiro then said, "Someone here." As Michiketsu then said, "Ah, that must be my brother." As he then said, "Yorichi." As Yorichi then showed himself. As he then said, "Ah, Michi, there you are. No demons sighted yet." As in this AU, Michiketsu and Yorichi actually have a kind of good relationship. While Michiketsu is still kind of salty about Yorichi being stronger, he sweeps that under the rug. He basically sweeps that under the rug. Meanwhile, with Yorichi, he is still broken as ever. But his father did not want, but due to him refusing his father's request to make him emperor or shogun, his brother, instead of seeing it as his brother was taking pity on him, he saw it as his brother simply wanting to live a peaceful life, which he respected. But their peaceful lives were ruined, as their father was killed in their first encounter with demons. And let's get back to the story. Tanjiro then said, "What demon? And what demon?" Basically, what is a demon? As Michiketsu then said, "You must not be from here. Either that or you just moved around here. A demon is basically a flesh-eating creature with shape and with many abilities, such as enhanced strength, speed, somewhat intelligence, and or stamina and endurance. If a demon is strong enough, they will gain a certain ability called a blood demon art. Right now, the demons are basically a secondary race in power. As Tanjiro then said, As he was just about to leave when Michiketsu then said, "Where are you going?" As he then said, "Oh, I'm going to look for a home. I'm for a place to build home." As Michiketsu then said, "Why don't you stay here? We have food, shelter, we have liquids and or drinks. We have running water, and we have clothes." As Tanjiro then said, "I don't want to intrude." As Michiketsu then said, "Nonsense. After all, you're the Emperor's guest. Stay." As he then said, "Okay." As we skip a couple of years later, around this time, Michiketsu's saltiness spread out a bit more due to Muzan instigating him from time to time. Tanjiro saw this and wanted to help Michiketsu, as he saw his brother was very proficient with the use of sun breathing and or his just regular OPS martial arts and sword techniques. He then said, sorry, Tanjiro came up with an idea, and he then said, "I can help you, Michi. I think I can help you. You're trying to get strong, right? I know you're a bit jealous of your brother." As Michiketsu then said, "Can't hide anything from you, can I, Tanjiro?" As it said, "Yes, I've been very salty. My brother's just too strong, like a monster. As you know, when he's here, he's usually a kind and gentle man, but when he's out on the battlefield, he's a monster. A literal monster. He slays demons with what seems like no mercy. The thing is, it doesn't even look like he's trying to kill them. Just playing with them, and ends up killing them." As Sandra then said, "What's your breathing technique again? And what's your sword technique called again?" As he then said, and as Michiketsu then said, "Breath of the Moon." As Tanjiro then said, my memories have gotten a bit clearer, and I remember the things about the moon a lot. Maybe I could help?" As he then said, "Go for it." As Tanjiro began copying Michiketsu's movements, but began adding a little strange sort of flair to them. As then, moon breathing evolved from what was only 6 techniques back then, and to a legendary 17th technique. Back then it was called the 7th, but nowadays it's called the 17th, but in the future will be called the 17th. And it's the only form of moon breathing Kokoshibo can't use, for a reason. As Tanjiro then used this move and said, "Breath of the Moon, 7th form." Waning crescent abyss and waning crescent void as then Tanjiro used the attack. But what happened was something unexplainable. When Tanjiro used this ability, instead of creating one or even two slashes like he was supposed to, within a single second, Tanjiro created 300 slashes of extremely large, and I mean very large slashes of moon breathing. To be exact, each slash was 5 shaku tall. Look it up. Shaku is a old Japanese measurement. And he just did 300 of these things in 1 second. Michiketsu looked at Tanjiro in absolute amazement and confusion, as he then said, "What the heck was that?" As he then said, "I don't know. All I did was simply do moon breathing, and that happened." As Michiketsu then said, "You just created an entirely different form. That's something I can't even do. As I only have the 6, but that was amazing." As Michiketsu then tried to copy the 7th form, but it didn't work. Due to him trying to copy the form and Tanjiro's exact movements, his heart began to ache, his breath began to slow, and he fell over in pain. Eventually, he would realize that this was also the case for a demon. The reason because of this is this form was created by a pillarman for a pillarman. Or specifically, by Tanjiro and for Tanjiro. But Tanjiro, instead of creating many more OP forms, he simply began using regular old moon breathing. Of course, using the 6 forms and on top of that, creating an extra other 6 forms, due to the fact that he already created a 7th. So now there is 7 moon breathing techniques only Tanjiro can use, because if even a demon tries using them, it will hurt a freaking lot. That's all I'm gonna say. We skip precisely around 5 years later. Around this time, Michiketsu betrayed the Demon Slayer Corps, becoming a demon, as after seeing what Tanjiro could do, and knowing what Yoriichi could do, Michiketsu felt like he was now, instead of being second best, he was third best. While he looked up to Tanjiro as a mentor, he wanted to be stronger. He had to be stronger, just somehow. And so, he became a demon. But even that was not enough to overpower Yoriichi or Tanjiro. While he wasn't able to slay to kill Tanjiro or Yoriichi during the time of their big fight, Yoriichi fell over in pain and died at the age of around 81, due to him being too old. Tanjiro, on the other hand, berserked out in rage, but also extreme sadness, seeing as the person who he thought of as a student and or best friend betrayed them. Tanjiro, while crying, began using his, as they were called, forbidden moon-breathing techniques. Reason because of this is not even Demon Kokoshibo can use them. So yeah, they're pretty OP. Hold on. Tanjiro, however, while not being able to beat Kokoshibo because of his emotions holding him back, and Kokoshibo simply not being able to kill Tanjiro because he was too friggin' cracked, eventually day rolled around. Now, Tanjiro, of course, was immune to day, but due to the distressed and distraught form he was in, condition he was in, Kokoshibo used this as a chance to get a one last final attack in. He grabbed a stone and threw it right at Tanjiro's stomach while he was laying over crying over Yorichi's death. The stone hit him right in the stomach, sending him flying into a tree. This not only discombobulated Tanjiro, but due to him being in a distraught state, his body did the one thing it knew it could do, or at the time it remembered it could do. It turned itself into stone. After that day, at night, Kokoshibo saw the statue and saw the stone Tanjiro and was confused. How the hell was Tanjiro able to turn himself into stone? As he knew that Tanjiro was already wicked strong. He simply rubbed it off as some sort of technique that Tanjiro could do. We skip around 400 years later. Around this time, Tanjiro awakens once more, breathing for the first time in a long while. Now, he has forgotten everything that happened 400 years ago as well. However, somewhere in Egypt, we hear Aztec dubstep music, and we hear Aztec dubstep begin playing as the entire pyramid begins cracking up, and as the entire ground begins cracking apart. Nearby travelers who were on camels were instantly turned into nothing but goo and mush. As then a woman who appeared to have bird wings walked out. Her bird wings then turned into humanoid arms. As she then said, I must be on an alternate Earth, due to the fact that it looks like I'm back in Egypt. Not only that, but I sense as if there is no Haman users in this world. Weird. As cars began walking around, as she then said, now, where is Tanjiro? As she would then and would then use her horns to sense through the air where her brother's presence was, as she could sense him somewhere in Japan. As she then said, "Bingo." As her arms then turned back into harpy wings, and she began flying. As we go back to Tanjiro, who has just awoken once more. This time, even more confused and much more of an amnesiac. He's wandering around and he finds this house of a small family. Over time, he befriends the family that lives there. They're known as the Kamados. They even adopt Tanjiro and name him Tanjiro Kamado. However, eventually, a certain someone decides to go on a lunch break and kills most of Tanjiro's adopted family when he is gone, and while he's gone selling coal. When he gets back, only Nezuko is the one with any sort of pulse, as somehow he can, in a way, feel her life still there. He shrugs this off and grabs her and holds her over his shoulder. He begins walking towards the nearest village, only for her to turn into a demon. The whole Gyu encounter happens, and yeah. Eventually, Tanjiro decides to go to, instead of Orokodaki's, he decides to only bring Nezuko there. Once he gets to Orokodaki's and befriends Orokodaki, after training, the two who then come to an agreement. Tanjiro will take the Demon Slayer exam, and will take the final exam, but Nezuko will be watched over by Orokodaki. They agree on this pact, and Tanjiro sets out for the final exam. It isn't really anything much, but Tanjiro is still prepared for any sort of challenge. When he gets what would normally be a challenge for a human, he doesn't really see it as much. Instead, he only sees it as another friggin' foot soldier, due to the fact that he's too broken. Like, literally, bro. Tanjiro, still thinking that he's a normal human, uses his non-breathing techniques to kill the extremely large armed demon with multiple arms. Yes, Tanjiro isn't using a breathing technique for an important reason. One, because when he tried using water breathing, it didn't work. Two, because when he tried using Hinokami Kagura, it burned his fingers, and even hurt him a bit. He does not exactly remember what moon breathing is or was, so he can't use that technique. So he's literally styling on demons without a breathing technique. After the final exam, Tanjiro becomes a breathless slayer. While many would think of this as a sign of weakness, Tanjiro sees it as the other way around. He sees it as a sign of strength, seeing that he does not need a boost such as a breathing style to be strong. He believes that it is his own natural strength that will help him win at the end of the day. However, things take an undesirable turn when one night, Nezuko is killed in front of him while on a mission. Nezuko is killed by a horned demon. Tanjiro is, for some reason, reluctant to attack the three-horned demon. But after seeing Nezuko being killed by this demon, Tanjiro is angry. And due to him being pissed off as hell, rips the demon in half. As we go back into Egypt, Cars is, instead of just simply flying over to Japan, she's taking a moment to look at the scenery. When she then remembers, oh shit, I should probably get AC/DC, WAMU, and even that Satana girl. Back, shouldn't I? As she then simply turns her hand around, and from it there's 3 drops of blood. They hit certain pieces of the earth. They hit what appears to be a mountain and or cliff. And then, due to this being friggin' nighttime, they don't burn. And then, from the cliff comes 3 figures, each posing for some unknown reason while Aztec dubstep begins bursting out of nowhere. The first appears to be wearing some sort of very skimpy garment, which for some reason has a sash-like part which covers her chest for some reason, and which covers her stomach for some weird reason. As she would then look around and say, I'm alive? In absolute confusion. As in this story, instead of being turned into stone and defeated by Joseph, Joseph would actually be stronger and would kill Il Santana. But only a bit stronger though. As Santana would begin walking around and would begin looking around in confusion, as she'd then say, how am I alive? As she then hear a voice from behind her saying, I do not know. She'd then look behind her only to see AC/DC back once more. As then, from behind AC/DC, would also appear WAMU. The 3 would look around in absolute confusion, seeing how the hell were they alive. And as they'd ask, how the hell were they alive? Cars would then drop down in front of them and say, hello ladies. As they'd all say, Ka-sama, and bow. As Cars would then say, it's great to see you all. Even you, Santana. She would say, to the red-haired woman. As she'd say, now the reason why brought you all back is simple. After all, you are close comrades and great warriors. Therefore, it would just be stupid to not bring you back. As she'd then say also, from what I have understood, this world has its own threats. They are like vampires, but different. They do not wield things like Hammond, but instead, they have these things called breathing styles, which allow them to use the elements among with other things in sword techniques. This allows them to be able to kill said demons. As then, the three would then say, hi. As she would then say, however, another reason why I've brought you three back is simple. Tanjiro is missing. I can sense his presence somewhere in this world's Japan. You might be wondering why I said this world's. Well, it's simple. The world has changed. We are in another world, a parallel one, where it appears the Pillarman race never existed, and neither does Hammond. Neither does Hammond. As everyone would then, and as the three would then say, that means that we virtually have no weaknesses here. As she would then say, now, hold on, ladies. Before you go saying you have no weaknesses here, there is a bit of a cinch. These demon slayers, due to them having these breathing techniques, they're able to use these techniques on us. While decapitation won't work and it'll just sting like a bitch, they also have techniques to destroy your skulls. And if you remember, if your brain is destroyed, you cannot live and you cannot survive. As she would then say. And that is why I had these prepared. As she would then pull out of, and from behind her back, she would then pull out 3 stone masks. As she would then say, and don't worry, during our battle, I snagged this little thing. As she would then hold the Super Aja in front of them. And she would then say, now, who's ready to get a major power boost? As then before the 3 pillar women would then smile, evil. As Cars would then say, Tanjiro, our forces are growing stronger. Soon we will find you. Hold on. And she would then say, soon, Tanjiro, my dear beloved brother, we will have you within our grasp. And then, not only will we repopulate our race, but we will eventually rule over this world and all of its creatures as gods. Just like we have always intended. And that is where I'm ending the episode off. As you can see, this took a lot of time and thinking into, especially when it came to Tanjiro's abilities. Admittedly, I didn't know whether or not I should give him moon breathing because he's already cracked as hell. But then I was like, F it. And so, yeah, I gave Tanjiro a cracked-ass Pillarman ability, along with the status and power of ultimate death, and, well, you can see, he's just cracked as hell. Meanwhile, with the other three, yes, I gave Cars the ability to bring them back because she is known as the ultimate life, or life form. So, technically, I believe that Canon Cars, if he wanted, could bring back his fallen comrades. If he dare wanted. As we've seen him turn a part of his body into a living creature before, so why can't he use his blood to bring back the dead? Exactly. And yes, yandere Pillar Woman Harem for Tanjiro. I know. Wow. I did not see this coming at all. Wink, 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 winkety wink, wink, wink. And yes, I know this is probably not one of my best ideas, but it is entirely original. So I thank you if you have watched this much of the video, and tell me in the comments if I should do anything else to make Tanjiro even more cracked, and or what I should give the other three Pillarmen, and as their ultimate abilities. Obviously, I'm thinking of giving. Now, honestly, I am thinking of giving Wamu title of ultimate, well, obviously, ultimate hurricane and or whirlwind, and I'm giving AC/DC title of ultimate inferno, but then the problem with Santana. So, I want you guys in the comments to tell me ideas for what Santana's element and or ability should be. Also, if you've made it this far in the video, please put in this order: black heart, purple, a black heart, a black heart emoji, yellow heart emoji, then a orange heart emoji, then a, if possible, cyan or blue heart emoji, and then a brown or red heart emoji, in that order. So yeah, please like, share, comment, subscribe. I will see you all later. Goodbye, and skadoosh.